What's up, Goomy Gang? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Now, as you know, we recently got the SPAS 12, or I'm sorry, the Reclaimer 18, back in Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone. And with it, you can switch on the fly between pump action mode and semi-automatic mode. Now, if you've watched my previous video, my guide on this gun in Warzone, you know that basically pump action mode is the way to go. Don't bother with any ammo types. Just put it in pump action, use it in tac stance, and you are good to go. It's an amazing, amazing pump action shotgun. But with this video in particular, I wanted to focus just on the semi-automatic mode, since it's basically like another gun with different damage profile and all that kind of stuff. And what I wanted to do is focus on the semi-automatic mode and give you guys a class for it, talk about it, and basically try to recreate the SPAS 12 from the original Black Ops 1 game, where everyone would rock it with a suppressor. That's basically what we're recreating here, and it's actually surprisingly useful, and I had a lot of good fun with it. It's just it doesn't have much range. But all that being aside, let's go ahead and hop right into it, and I'll share with you guys some timestamps down below in the description if you want to hop to a certain part of the video. So talking about the base Reclaimer 18 in semi-automatic mode with no ammo types, this is the damage profile for that. As you can see, the sweet spot for this gun is about 5 meters. You really want to stay in that range, because that is essentially where you're getting 3-shot kills with this thing. You deal 140 damage up close, which is basically what the Haymaker does, so that is really nice. It's just on the cusp of getting a 2-shot kill, but it is a 3-shot kill, and your time to kill isn't really super amazing. It's 658. That's slower than a lot of shotguns. That's slower than a lot of SMGs. And keep in mind though that this 182 is based off of hand-tested value, so it could be a little bit off. It could be a little bit faster, a little bit slower. Just keep that in mind. Sim.gg doesn't actually show the fire rate increase when you switch to semi-automatic mode, so just keep that in mind. This is hand-tested. And really past that, you just don't really want to be caught using this thing, because it is a 4-shot kill, which isn't a lot, but it's a 987 millisecond time to kill, which is way worse than any gun. I mean, considering past 5 meters, that's the time to kill you get, that's awful. That is just really not good. But in that 5 meters, in that really close range, it's surprisingly useful and actually surprisingly good as long as you hit your shots. Now, the downside with a gun like this is that since the fire rate isn't that fast compared to something like an SMG, one shot that gets scuffed boosts your time to kill by a lot. I mean, as you can see, from 3 to 4 shots, it bumps up from 658 to 987. That's a huge jump, so it's really unforgiving. Even though it's easier to use and easier to handle than maybe an SMG would, it's still way weaker, and so you have to keep that in mind, and this can be very unforgiving. Now, another way to run this gun in semi-automatic mode is with Dragon's Breath, and here's the profile for that. And as you can tell, it's pretty much similar or almost identical to the base ammo. The only difference is that that max damage range has a little bit more range to it, so you're dealing that 140 damage out to a little bit further. That 5.2 in the first damage range is basically just 1/10 of a meter off the 5.1. That could be totally user error. It could be the same. Shotguns are a little finicky when you test them, so keep in mind. But basically, it seems like there's no real downside to using Dragon's Breath, except you just get better range in that first range. So I would recommend using Dragon's Breath for this reason. You don't get any ticks of burn damage. It seems like it's bugged. You basically deal the same damage as the base ammo, and there's no burn or tick damage. Even though you see the flames come out and there is technically a burn on the enemy, they're not getting ticks of burn damage, so you deal exactly the same damage. Again, that's probably bugged, just keep that in mind, but maybe that's something they'll fix. I hope so, and I hope it's not really intended. That'd be nice to see this actually get some good Dragon's Breath treatment. Another interesting thing about the semi-automatic mode compared to something like the pump mode is that your hipfire and your tac stance spread are both really tightened when you switch to semi-automatic mode. It's a really nice thing. I like how they kind of changed it up that way, and it does make it a lot more consistent if you're hitting your shots. But of course, with the tighter spread, you are going to have that little bit more of unforgiveness to it, because it's a lot easier to scuff your shots than if you have like a wide spread or a little bit of a wider spread, so keep that in mind. Now, personally, I wouldn't go full-blown tac stance build if you're trying to kit this thing out for semi-automatic mode, because it doesn't really help make a difference in those ranges where it should, because you deal such little damage and it takes so long to kill someone past like 5 meters. I mean, again, we're talking like close to a second. You're still going to get melted by people. Yes, it'll make it a little bit more consistent, but all you're really doing, I feel like, is just hurting your ability to hit targets at closer ranges, since you have to be more accurate. So I would take a little bit more of a widespread. Again, also considering the fact that with a barrel you get 10 pellets, you really want to take advantage of having 10 pellets and not 4 like the Riveter. So having a little bit of a wider spread, in my opinion, is a benefit for this gun in particular, so you don't have to be quite as accurate. You can take advantage of movement and jump around and still have 10 pellets, and the base spread on its own in tac stance for semi-automatic mode is good enough to where you could hit distance targets fair enough, so you don't really need to focus purely on tac stance. Now let's talk the build itself, and like I said before, we're trying to emulate the Black Ops 1 version of this gun, which pretty much everybody rocked this gun with a suppressor, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Now the suppressor you choose, just look for one that has the least range penalty and doesn't hurt your aim down sight speed too much. It's going to be primarily a tac stance hipfire type build, so you don't need to worry about that as much. Now we are rocking the Discourage or Heavy Barrel because we're going to offset that small penalty to our range from the suppressor. It'll give us more range, which is always good for this thing. With the DR6 hand stop, I'm using that because I actually enjoy how it hurts your tac stance spread and it gives you some mobility. Now normally I don't rock that because there's other attachments to help your tac stance spread, but this one, it's already so tight, I made it just a little bit wider. So in those close ranges where you really want to be with this thing, it makes it a little bit more forgiving to use. Now we are rocking Dragon's Breath because that's what I recommend. You get a better max damage range, so you might as well take advantage of that. And then we have no stock. Now another interesting attachment you could use is, instead of maybe the hand stop, if you want to go the route of pure tac stance, just use the Haste XV grip tape because it does give you better spread for tac stance and it does give you better sprint to fire speed. Now a laser I wouldn't really recommend. They're not really super worth it. A visible laser I would rather not have compared to some of these other attachments because the sprint to fire speed's already pretty great on this gun. And again, I don't really need a much tighter tac stance spread because it's already so tight. So this is the build I landed on and I had some pretty good success with it. As for my thoughts overall on this build, I was pleasantly surprised by how fun and good it was when you kit it out specifically for semi-automatic mode. I was using it primarily as a pump action mode, and when I would switch to semi-auto mode, I was always a little underwhelmed, but actually using it and kitting it out specifically for semi was actually super fun. The really nice thing about this build is you have such a great spread when you're moving and you can jump around. You have 10 pellets, so you can really be finessing people with this thing and still get your shots off pretty consistently as long as you have the aim for it. So it makes it super fun and it is somewhat viable. It's just that, of course, with the time to kill and the time to kill at ranges, it can be really unforgiving. So you've got to make sure you hit your 3 or maybe 4 shot kills and then get the hell out of there. And also, I recommend using sleight of hand because this thing reloads pretty damn slow and that generally helps. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. So as always, I want to know down below in the comments, what do you think about this gun in semi-automatic mode? Do you prefer the pump action mode like most people do, like myself? Do you actually like semi-automatic mode better? Does it remind you of Black Ops 1? And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.
Ay, Dios mío.